I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. There are payment plans available to help save your property. Visit our website at treasurer.waynecounty.com or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com for further information. We're here to help.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. My name is Saeed Khan, broadcasting from Bradford, UK. So it's afternoon here, but certainly morning time in the Eastern time zone. Joined with really a good legal and political team today. We have attorneys Steve Fishman and Joel Sklar. We have developer and the former chair of the Michigan Republican Party.
Co-chair. Stop it.
Co-chair.
I don't get all the blame.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Co-chair. Yeah. And we have Deadline Detroit co-founder Allan Lengel. Double exclamation.
Yeah, don't blame me for everything.
And of course, our veteran journalist Nancy Derringer is off this week, so we certainly tried to diversify the panel. The best they could do was diversifying it religiously, so we can go forward with that. Okay, well, it looks like there may be another indictment looming to add to the laundry list that former President Donald Trump has, and this is kind of an interesting one. It's I suppose, a spin-off of the documents case at Mar-a-Lago. The possibility that special prosecutor is looking to bring up charges in Bedminster, New Jersey, because of allegations that some of the same issues regarding classified documents happened in New Jersey, perhaps to hedge bets in case something goes awry in the Florida case. What's going on here, and what are the prospects for the former president?
Go ahead.
Lawyers first.
Yep.
Yes,
Lawyers first.
Me?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know about it. I don't like the idea of having it as a backup. I don't like that idea. I think there's enough to convict. We'll talk about the potential jurors in Florida, I'm sure, somewhere today. I don't know about doing it like that. I don't want to give more ammunition to these idiots that think that this is just a political prosecution, et cetera. If he did it, which he obviously did do it, hell, he confessed to it again this week.
Right.
So,
Fishman, I watched him on TV. I could only think of you. Watching your client, Boebert, do a TV interview on television in front of the whole world. I'd just be taking notes if I'm a prosecutor.
Making admissions.
yeah, not just making admissions, he's admitting to the crime. For God's sake. I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, I was in the area of 7 Mile, Livernois, but I was standing there with a pistol as the guy ran by and I shot him in the back of the head. That's a little bit more of an admission. Anyway,
what's wrong with that?
My answer to your question, though, I prefer to see it go forward this way, and assuming, who the hell can say for sure, that they bring the case in Georgia, which I've said how long is the best and the most solid case state court wise. I don't think you need to do another one. So that's my answer, I think.
I got a question. Why would they not just do it as a superseding and add another count or two to the existing indictment? Do they have? Is there a need that they would have to? I mean, it's all part of the conspiracy.
Yeah,
it's not like a non sequitur there.
You can do that. I've certainly had cases that are being tried in the Eastern District of Michigan that had things that happened in other states, and as long as they were part, you're right, Alan. If it's a drug deal and it goes to West Virginia and some guy in Ohio gets stopped, it can all wind up here. But again, I think that my guess is they're trying to make it as straightforward and clear as possible. The speaking indictment that he filed, I thought was brilliant because it laid it right out. And anybody that doesn't believe it, well, read the indictment. It's out of his own mouth. I just don't like the idea of giving any more ammunition to these idiots that are screaming it's a selective prosecution.
I think he's looking for a discount, for a group discount or something. I don't know.
Well, you know, Bill Barr has come out against him, really just saying that it's a pretty damning indictment. And here's Trump's response to Bill Barr.
Virtually everyone is saying that the fake indictment is about election interference and should not have been brought, except Bill Barr, a disgruntled former employee and very weak person. and a very, very lazy attorney general was totally ineffective.
He hires the best, he gets the best, and he stands by the best.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, especially given the accusations that Barr shielded Trump from so much while he was in office. But what about that Fox News interview that you mentioned, Fish? I mean, here's a pretty much a confession. I mean, Brett Baer really put him on the on the chopping block.
I think, and I don't watch Fox News, but I saw enough of it when it was playing in the gym. I give that guy a tremendous amount of credit. I've given him credit before, though, too. I think he's a real journalist. And what he did best there, and I think all you guys can recognize this, Trump wants to be somewhere where he's comfortable. And what he really wants is when he has a crowd, like he had all those morons in wherever the hell he was, that he was messing with the CNN lady. He needs a crowd. When he's in a one-on-one situation, if you remember when Chris Wallace had him one-on-one, he really, if somebody stops him like you would in a courtroom and says, wait a minute, no, answer this question, answer this, he's going to screw up. And this was just a colossal screw up to me. And my answer to Jeffrey is if I were his lawyer, which I never would have been, I've fired any number of clients during my long career. And the quickest way to get fired if I'm your lawyer is start talking to the press when I don't know anything about it.
Well, what I hate with a passion, you guys all know me, well, Joel doesn't, but personally, it just adds fuel to the fire that people believe him is beyond belief to me. That people follow him with blind loyalty is beyond belief to me. Now I'm talking as a Jew. When he first got in office, I was very offended by the Hitler comparison because he wasn't taking people out and shooting them. However, I now understand how somebody can come into power. And in our country, I never thought I'd see it in a million. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, who gives a shit. Are we allowed to swear on the show or not?
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
When someone's wrong, they're wrong. And to keep following time after time after time and give this guy a pass, he's leading in the poll by 30%, is unfucking believable. Yeah. And if you're running against him and you're not attacking him, why the hell are you running? You know, it's like we got a basketball game here. I'm covering you. I want to kick your ass. I mean, come on, you know. And by the way, using a basketball analogy again, if I'm your backup, I want to kick your ass in practice, right? In a primary, I want to kick your ass. So I don't get it. I'm never going to get it. I don't want to get it. But it doesn't say a lot for our country. That's all I'm going to say.
Well,
it's a shanda.
Huh?
It's a shanda.
Translate to the viewers, please.
So apparently, a lot of the reporting is that at Shea Trump, things have gotten quiet, things have gone sour. He was monumentally angry about Hunter Biden's plea deal. So let's go ahead and talk about that here on Hunter Biden, the son of the president. Has pled guilty to 2 misdemeanor counts of failure to pay taxes, 1 felony gun charge, and it looks like he's going to receive probation and a fine, i.e. no jail time for any of this. And it has been the latest thing to make Trump go apoplectic. But Allan, I think before we get into the discussion, I think it also is generational, that there's another generation of the Trumps that seems to have been pretty mad about this.
Yes. Well, here, okay. This is an old one, but it's old.
Accusations against our groper in chief as governor of New York. This guy was made a hero when he seems like he's maybe the biggest predator in American politics today.
In recent weeks, Donald Trump Jr., the oldest, least Eric-y son of Donald Trump, has been complaining that a politician has not been punished for his alleged sex crimes. It raises an uncomfortable question. Does Don Jr. know who his father is?
So first of all, the actual charges and the plea deal, especially Joel. I mean, I think you haven't chimed in on this one. What are the charges? Do you think they undercharged him? What's going on?
Well, I think with Steve, Steve, you deal with the DOJ. You've dealt with people who haven't paid taxes or filed returns. You're best to opine on this than I am. I do the civil work and sue everybody, but I don't do that. So, what do you think, Steve?
I think he got a really good deal. I don't know exactly. I've been reading a little more. You guys remember I don't watch TV, so I don't get to hear all of the geniuses on there analyzing things. But the business with the gun and the fact that he's going to get diversion, it's not probation. That's a unique situation for me. I've seen it where you get diversion where there's one charge and you make a deal and the person gets pretrial diversion. And what that means for the audience is that they complete a period of what you might refer to as probation. If you do everything fine, the case is dismissed and but I will tell you this, the rule in federal court has changed in the last 10 years. It used to be you didn't have to go in front of the judge and admit to the crime. If it's the same way as we understand it in the Eastern District, he will have to stand in front of the judge who he's getting this diversion from and admit that he committed that offense with respect to the gun. With respect to the tax count, the last one that I had, we did not get any misdemeanors. It was tax evasion. As it turned out, the defendant did not go to jail, but that had more to do with the judge than it did with the government. The government didn't make a deal for no jail. And I should tell you, by the way, all these pundits that are saying he's not going to jail, they must live inside the judge's head, because It doesn't really matter what the lawyers say in federal court or even in state court for that matter. But in federal court, the lawyers can recommend whatever they want to recommend. But ultimately, it's up to the judge. And I'm not so sure that a judge is going to do what these people are all saying is going to happen, that he or she is going to say, oh, fine, here's probation. And then there's all kinds of different things that you can get, even where it's not a custody sentence, meaning not a prison sentence. You can wind up in a halfway house. You can wind up on home confinement. There's all kinds of different things that can happen. So I think it's really, really premature for people to start talking about he's not going to jail for sure, because they're not the judge.
Can I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Now I'm going to take it. So his father is the president of the United States, and all we talk about is gun control, and he's going to hire 85,000 agents. Okay. And if he does truly get 2 misdemeanors, I think it stinks. And I think it's terrible because at the end of the day, Fish has been in front of people with this a million times. You can't sit there and cry all these different things. And just like, a shooter gets free at Michigan State University, he's back on the street again. You're going to have a law, enforce it. Abraham Lincoln said the best way to get rid of a bad law is to enforce it. Make up your mind what you want. The guy broke the law twice. My conspiracy theory is, yes, the media did hold back on the computer before the election. There's no doubt about it. He's got a son with mental issues, and I have sympathy for people with mental issues. Fair is fair, right is right, and wrong is wrong. He's entitled to. I thought when I saw the thing, I thought Fishman was his attorney, by the way, and I just think and that's where. And now again, that's where the conspiracy theories come up, and it just feeds right into the narrative that we shouldn't even be talking about this. It should be.
Go ahead.
And by the way, we talk about the same right to everybody else when you go to court. If you're a poor person, you go to court, you get a shitty result. You're a rich person or a big shot, you get a better result. It's a fact, and we just proved it.
I have a question for Steve, really, a couple of questions. One, if somebody has a case like that and they've been a serious substance abuser and now they've sort of gone on the right path, is that taken into consideration ever when the charges are filed? And the second thing is, we had a U.S. attorney there who was a Trump appointed U.S. attorney who I'm assuming is the one who negotiated or figured out the charges and figured out, the plea agreement. So actually the first question first is that taken into account if somebody's not filing taxes, but they've been so fucked up and they've been substance abusers and stuff like that? Have you seen that taken into account?
I'm fucked up. I didn't know how to file taxes. Okay.
Well,
I don't want to be as cynical as Jeff, but you got to make sure you understand. And again, this is stuff that the media doesn't communicate properly. There's a big difference between a plea argument and a sentencing argument. What you're talking about, that has nothing to do with what he has the ability to plead guilty to. I've never had a case where a U.S. attorney says, well, the poor son of a bitch was high or he's a drug addict or whatever, therefore we're not going to charge him. Those are arguments you make to the judge at sentencing time. Those should have nothing to do with the decision as to what to make somebody plead to. I agree with Jeffrey when I tell you I've never had a case where I got a misdemeanor on a tax evasion case. And I think particularly here, when you got the son of the president, it looks bad. But the answer to your question is very simple. No, that doesn't should not enter into the decision as to what kind of plea a guy gets. Sentencing, for sure.
Just to respond and to comment and just further what Jeffrey said, first of all, as a Democrat, if Hunter Biden committed a crime, throw the fucking book at him. Same with Biden. If anybody commits a crime in office, they deserve to be punished to the full extent of the law.
He's not in office.
Well, I understand that, but his father is in office. He is related to the president's son, and he's kind of in that penumbra, certainly within that family. And my view is that whoever commits a crime certainly has to be accountable. I think this double standard that we have, it's certainly the perception that Hunter Biden has gotten a sweetheart deal is going to persist. But as I'm telling you that my framework and my viewpoint, I think many Democrats, is that if Hunter Biden committed a god-awful crime, send him to fucking prison. The same with Trump. If Trump commits a god-awful crime, send him to fucking prison. The law has to be equal. So the perception is fair. The optics are awful. I believe that the law has to be applied fairly, just like you, Jeffrey, to both sides. And I think the perception sucks, but I don't know what the undercurrent or what the underlying facts all may be and what the motives may be for the special. Was it a special counsel, special prosecutor? I think
special counsel.
Special counsel, what those considerations were.
Oh, wait. No, in that case, the U.S. attorney was just the U.S. attorney. He wasn't a special counsel.
That's right.
But you know, Durham,
and he was a Trump holdover. I mean, he was not a Biden appointee.
Wait, let me tell you guys.
Influenced by Biden on what happened here, according to him.
Let me just tell you one other thing, and this doesn't mean that I don't share the opinion that this looks bad. What we never really know, and we're not going to know, we don't know the strength of the case either. And I don't know. I mean, most tax cases, they don't bring them criminally unless they got a pretty rock solid case. I tried one in my entire career with a guy whose name I won't mention, who's now deceased, but Jeffrey would have known him or of him, which tells you what tribe he came from. But most of the time by the time they're going to bring a tax evasion case, they got a solid, if not a locked case, and you wind up making a deal. I don't know how strong the case was against this guy.
That's because Hunter didn't do an hour special with Brent Beer and Fox News. He would have.
Right, that's probably true too. But I will tell you one other thing, and I don't know if I say it the same way as Joel. I've told people there's Republicans in the gym that always want to give me the what about. And Joel, I have said almost exactly the same thing, maybe with different language. Look, if Hunter Biden or Joe Biden, whoever it is, if they committed a crime, charge them and let's go forward. Nobody's saying what about. Yeah. If these guys make the decision they make, that's up to the U.S. Attorney's Office. But I don't think anybody that's in their right mind, and I agree with Jeffrey, some of the people that still support Trump are no longer in their right mind. If a guy did something, you got to pay, whether you have to go to prison or not, or whether you pay $10 million in a fine. I don't know, but there shouldn't be any distinction between Democrats, Republicans, rich people, poor people, black people, white people,
100%.
When it comes down to crime.
When I argue with people, they said, "But I go, that's not a freaking defense." Okay?
Right. Those are sentences.
He shot someone too. Oh, great, good defense.
But no, those are sentences. See, it's very important for all you guys, anybody listening, to make sure you understand the difference between not guilty arguments, meaning I didn't do it, and sentencing arguments, meaning I was a junkie, I had one leg, 14 other people did the same thing. Those are all sentencing arguments, and that's what's available here. That's what should have been available to Hunter Biden. Whether he did it or not, we don't know. If he pleads guilty to it, he's admitting he did it. But all that other stuff really goes to sentencing and not to what the type of plea you should get.
So we do have another situation that applies to the application of sentencing and all. FBI analyst Kendra Kingsbury, who pled guilty in last October to illegally holding hundreds of classified documents at home, has been sentenced to 46 months in prison, 3 years and 10 months. How do you think that's going to play, or is anybody going to raise that when it comes to, excuse me, not only former President Trump, but all of the pitchforks that come out for people like President Biden and his garage, like how Kevin McCarthy says, well, the garage is unlocked, or even Mike Pence?
I think it's sobering for people to know that it is a serious offense, because up till now it's like, oh my God, they're just or the Republicans, they're just picking on Trump. It's not a big deal. I think when they send someone off to prison like this, I think it sends a message, but a lot of people aren't going to know about it. They're not going to talk about it. They're going to ignore it. It's never going to come up on the Republican side. The Democrats are going to raise it.
I can tell you this. I thought the timing was very fortuitous. I don't know, sentences in federal court can be 3-4 months after a guilty plea. It can be longer than that. But I thought the timing was fortuitous. I can't speak to whether other people will learn about it. If it's not on Fox News or in the New York Post, I guess maybe they won't. But I think it showed it. And when you read with the comments by the judge in sentencing that lady, 46 months was either the top of her guidelines if her guidelines were 37 to 46, or the bottom of her guidelines if they were 46 to 57. But that is a significant sentence, and it's for the exact same crime, violation of the Espionage Act. And I thought the comments by the court that I read in the newspaper were really, really good. Now, is it going to satisfy the people Jeffrey was talking about at the beginning of the show? Of course not. It'll never satisfy them. But what you have to do, I think, most thinking people, Republicans, Democrats, or whatever, you have to sit down and you have to look at the kind of case that it is and look at how seriously that case was treated. And my guess is that case came up long before Trump was indicted, obviously, because it's at least 3-4 months between plea and sentence, and the indictment might have been 2 years ago. So I was happy to see it. I really appreciated what the judge said about it, and I think that's something that going forward, if I were in Trump's shoes, even with the judge that he has, when I looked at his face and how crazy he looked when he was being interviewed by Bear, I could see that getting worse and worse. As something like this happens, as time gets closer, as he makes more admissions, as his lawyers start telling him, have you lost your mind? Which, no. I think that this case was a good case to come when it did, and I think it's something that everybody ought to read and think about.
Pathology and Trump's pathology over time worsens. The older you get, typically whatever pathology you have increases and more manifests itself. With all this pressure that you're seeing Trump is under, I think he's even doubting himself. That's what I saw in that interview. It was Trump bluster, but there seemed to be some fear and doubt. That's going to continue. I think that's going to worsen. Number two, there's nothing like the sobriety of a fucking courtroom. You go into federal court and you know where you are. There is a feeling to it. There is a presence to it. And every time Trump has to go sit down at one of these arraignments or one of these hearings, he knows he's no bigger than the guy next to him. He's no smaller than the guy next to him. Maybe he is. He's the defendant, but he is in a world he does not control. And I think when all that gets mixed together, you're going to see more of Trump being what he is, which is someone disassociated from reality and going crazy. And his craziness is going to get worse because all that mixed together is combustible.
I think you're thinking about someone that's normal, and
he's not.
Yeah, so I think that, I don't care who you are. If I sue you, trust me, you're going to stay up. You have the most solid case in the world. I'm sure Fishman doesn't give guarantees, but so he does. His future is cloudy best, right. And most of us would have diarrhea, and this guy is just different. And I think when you're a narcissist, you just think you're going to get out of everything, and till it happens,
right?
Keep going.
So, those walls are kind of collapsing one by one, and the closer it comes to finally collapsing on you, that anxiety increases, and it just manifests itself more and more and more. And he's not normal. He has a narcissistic personality disorder. But it's going to mess with him physiologically, emotionally. It is going to torture him. And it probably is now, obviously.
Let me point something out, by the way, that follows up on what you two guys have just said. Were he a normal person and a normal client, this is a perfect situation for a competent defense lawyer to make a deal. You've got one indictment here. You got a state court case in New York. You got the possibility of a state court case in Georgia, maybe a second indictment in New Jersey, whatever. If it were a real normal person, a normal client, a normal defendant, a good lawyer would sit the person down and say, you're 70, however old he is, 6, 7, 8, whatever it is. Let me look and see what I can do in terms of keeping your butt out of jail. Okay? We'll make a deal. We'll plead to the case, let's say in Florida, And I believe personally, given all that's gone on, and I leave it more to somebody like Jeff, because he's, and Allan and Saeed, you guys are more into, all of the
Political.
not so much the political, but just the way things are looked at the media. Right. I believe the government would be open to that. I think they'd probably make a deal. If you plead, and maybe there'd be a little agreement, you can't continue to run for president.
Believe me, that'd be part of it.
Go to jail, and you might be able to avoid jail. A normal client, a normal defendant, a competent defense lawyer would be talking to that person just like that. Unfortunately, as you guys say, and I agree with you, this is not a normal human being.
And also, he's your client what the reality is, right? You'd be having to come to Jesus moment, as it were, among all of us, and you would be able to.
Oops.
I think his idea.
He shouldn't have mentioned Jesus. This is what happened.
It says shot, boom, lightning. Are you back, Joel?
Whoever you want, yeah.
There's nobody here that believes in Jesus anyhow. I don't know what the problem
is. But seriously, Fish, wouldn't you have that sit down and say, what the hell are you thinking? I mean, is there anybody capable of doing that with this guy?
No, and this is what I'm telling you, is that's exactly what I do. And you guys, I'm not going to go into anybody's names, but you guys have seen in the media over a number of years, people I've represented who nobody ever thought would make a deal. Nobody ever thought would agree to do anything other than keep on fighting, bang your head against the wall. But that's why I have chairs across from my desk here. And I sit them down, and if I bring in whoever their others are, you bring your kid, bring your wife, your husband, whoever it is, and I sit them down and I talk. We hate to keep using Yiddish. I talk tachlis with them, and tachlis means, for those who are listening, you're talking serious now. When my mother or my grandmother or my father told me I'm talking tachlis, that meant I better sit my butt up and listen. And yes, that's what you do normally. Unfortunately, I don't believe this guy's capable. And I think what he'll do, what he does is just goes to another person, and someone who'll kiss his behind and just confront him with that stuff.
I think that other person is Boris Epstein.
Yeah, he doesn't help him any, that's for sure.
Which is just incredible to me.
I think
Epstein is his lead legal advisor, because he tells him everything he wants to hear.
Exactly. So.
And Joel, he's reviled by all of the other Trump attorneys.
Right.
Correct. They all hate him because he says shit that isn't so to make his client or whoever he is happy. It's nuts.
I think his plan is to delay any federal cases he can get, and thinking that he's going to get elected, he'll somehow pardon himself. And on the state cases, he'll be like, you can't take me out of office. It's just. He's just creating I'm the president. I don't think he can be derailed. I mean, if you watch that Brett Baer interview, he is still going, I won the 2020 election. I killed it. And he's a stubborn motherfucker. He will not let go, man.
He's like the oceanic submersible, man, and the pressure is going to destroy him.
I wonder how he does. I wonder how he does in solitaire.
He'll talk to himself a lot. He'll be telling himself to shut up. But Joel, you being a psychologist as well, in narcissist, a narcissist never admits he's wrong, and never apologizes, never admits he's wrong. And so why should he step aside? He didn't do anything wrong. It was a perfect call. It was a perfect, document. Everything's perfect.
Nobody's ever seen this before. Nobody can.
Right.
It's gonna be when he finally, in his this maze or this haze that he looks at the world through his own perceptions, comes the reality that there is no other escape, that his options are limited, and that the rules of the world actually apply to him, because he doesn't believe that yet. But that reality becomes more and more real and certain. You're going to see you're going to see a significant change. I think his deterioration is happening in real time. This is one of the phenomenons of Trump and why he's so captivating. He is charismatic. He is, I hate him, and yet I find him compelling to watch.
It's true.
But I think we're going to keep seeing this deterioration over time, because this is, Stephen, just the pressure, Jeffrey, that you recognize, getting sued civilly will fuck with your head.
Yeah.
Having these criminal indictments and charges, and knowing that they're all around and more are coming, it's going to take a toll, and we're going to see it. And as a former psychologist, that's what my prediction would be. That you're going to see him get more and more.
What, are you a former because you weren't any good or didn't pay well?
There's some pesky complaints I don't want to get into. But in any event, yeah, it's been a long time.
All righty.
I would say
closer to home in Michigan.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. The fact that we spent this much time talking about this guy tells you everything. All these million things going on, and he still dominates everything. Yeah. It's freaking pathetic.
Well, I'll say this. In 2016, he really brought the mojo back to the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN. They were fading, and he brought them right into it. And during the subscriptions to the New York Times and the Washington Post went way up during Trump because people wanted to read about Trump. I have a friend at New York Times who just wrote a story about Trump, and he said, you wouldn't believe the traffic this guy generates.
Well, I'm going to add one thing for you guys because this I'm privy to. When I was the co-chair, he came to Macomb, and he comes in the back. The first thing he does, he shakes hands with all the law enforcement guys. And he walked up to me, doesn't know who I am, and he said, how am I doing in the polls? So I lied to him, told him he was even. He was down 8.5. He proceeded to go on stage and said, we're going to win this thing because some fat bald guy told me we're even. But to add to that, he asked one question, and everybody wants to know how he won the last time. He asked one question, has Hillary been here? And does she draw crowds like this? The answer was no, she hasn't. And no, she doesn't draw crowds like that. And that's a very scary thing. So as this moves on and he's quote unquote ahead in the polls, it's scary, but I don't see how he wins I don't see how he ever wins Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia again. Everybody he endorsed went down the toilet. So anyways, stop talking about it.
I have an interesting Macomb story is that, the Chaldeans voted for him in a large block here in 2016. Then they started freaking out because he started rounding up all these Chaldeans who had 30 years ago an assault or whatever, trying to deport him. They were like, oh my God, we can't believe this. Then right before the election in February of 2020, he came to Macomb and he said, I'm going to save the Chaldeans from being deported. And so I talked to a Chaldean after who's pretty sharp guy. And he's like, oh my gosh, yeah, he's not perfect, but oh my God, he's the first president to ever mention the word Chaldean. We love him. So
I'm gonna disagree with you on that because I was privy to that whole thing.
Yeah,
I recall because God knows Trump doesn't know what a Chaldean is to this day.
Yeah.
So I went to Washington with some of the leaders in the Chaldean community. We met with a bunch of congressmen for them to form a letter to give the president, tell him that these are good people who may have made mistakes in the past. And actually, were told a couple of them they pay the airfare to get them out of here. But besides the points, we're in a room and they were talking about how they came to this country. They're kicked out of their own country. They've assimilated. They educate their children. They pay taxes. To which I said, "Now you're lying. You guys don't pay taxes." To which one of the congressman said, "I can't think of anything more American than that." So I'll leave it at that.
That's funny.
So we've got a situation closer to home in Michigan where Attorney General Dana Nessel is bringing charges on signature fraud, operating a criminal enterprise, false pretenses, and election fraud against three individuals: Sean Wilmoth, his wife Jamie Lynn Wilmoth Gooden, and Willie Reed, which led to 5 GOP candidates for governor being disqualified and 2 nonpartisan judicial candidates being disqualified. It seems as though there is still quite a bit of a rot in the system.
Well, I think for one thing, he saved 5 candidates some money. But obviously the thing, it's still flawed. And I mean, it's so interesting, like in some of these campaign years where the Republicans have screamed about voter fraud and election fraud. And there's a problem still, obviously. And these guys, look, these smart guys pick the wrong people to collect their signatures.
They picked the wrong political consultant who's still working for this idiot that's running for president. I'm here to tell you, there's no way Tudor Dixon would have been the nominee because she wouldn't have had the money to get where she got if the guy who was spending millions of dollars and still is on himself for whatever reason. He looks like he was Barry Manilow's baby with Howdy Doody or something. But and by the way, I take objection when you say Republicans. Not all Republicans think that the election was and to the point where the Speaker of the House and the Senate in Michigan put the thing through. So I think still a minority of people that believe. So whatever.
So what happens to I was going to ask you, so what happens? We have this woman, Christina Caramo, leading the Republican Party. What do the mainstream Republicans or previous mainstream Republicans say about it? I mean, the woman's just not sane.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I've never met with her because I refuse to meet with her. I wouldn't waste my time. If you recall, she made a statement about comparing gun control to the Nazis taking away guns from Jews, in which I got calls from many rabbis that went and met with her and then gave her out to say an apology. Sounds familiar, right? No apologies coming. Like, if I'm offended, I will never speak for a black person. And if you're not Jewish, you will never speak for me. I don't know how I feel about the Holocaust or anything else. So that's what we have. And the results were going to show themselves. There's a Mackinac conference coming up. No one's given, I don't know how she's going to pull it off. We're going to get burned on. She's trying to do a caucus primary, which means I won't get to vote. You'll have my say. And we're going to pay a heavy price for it. But the person to blame, once again, is the guy that was president, because this never would have happened to anybody else. And which is why he's going to lose. If he does get the nomination again, if people care to bet me, I'm ready to take your money. He's not winning. And that's just the way it's going to be. There's 25, went to a, what's that third party called? No label party meeting. We believe there's 25 million Republicans that won't vote for him under any circumstance. That's a lot of votes. And they're all Republicans. So we'll see.
I think the country, like the Clintons, really, I think with Hillary Clinton, I think some people were just fatigued by Bill Clinton's presidency, by all the, I thought he did a lot of good stuff, but it was also, there was so much bullshit during that presidency. I think people were like, bad enough of the Clintons. And I think with Trump, I think the Trump fatigue, even among some of the Republicans, is even some of the former people who support him or voted for him in 2016 are just, we got to get rid of this guy. They realize how toxic he is.
Other than The Simpsons, every show gets canceled, and he has fatigued us significantly.
I'm surprised he hasn't done a Simpsons episode yet. Think of what the hair would look like in The Simpsons.
But yeah, there's a lot of fatigue, Trump fatigue, and I think he's losing. I think he's deteriorating. He just is.
Let me ask you a question. If you guys are all Democrats, if you were to there's a primary and Biden's going to be the nominee, obviously, would you cross over and vote in a primary? Would you vote for Trump, or would you avoid him at all costs?
Yeah, I wouldn't cross over. I just don't go to. I don't think I've ever run really a primary. I hate saying that. Yeah.
So speaking of crossing over, Jeff, I mean, 25 million votes is quite a bit, and there's just not enough Muslims in the country that are going to cross over with their latest attitudes toward LGBTQ, it seems.
Are you talking about Hamtramck?
Talking about Hamtramck and a bunch of other persons, but I mean, from some of the conversations that I'm hearing, it's scary to see that within less than 25 years from 9/11, there is a critical mass in the Muslim American community that is seriously considering voting Republican. Now, some of that isn't really that far off, because polling showed 30% of the Muslim American community voted for Trump in 2020, despite the travel ban and all of that stuff.
They wanted to get a free ride.
What's that?
They wanted to get a free ride home paid by the government. Whatever.
It's amazing to me. And it's interesting. Hamtramck, the mayor, has come out and said he's sticking to it. It's important they stick to it. I mean, and they say, oh, it's any flags, any political flags. First of all, it's questionable whether the pride flag should be like Black Lives Matter. Is that, is that really political? And then you could argue it is, but it's really, they're saying it's all flags, but it's only, that law was passed only for one flag,
Well,
only with that in mind.
I was on the Civil Rights Commission, okay? Governor Whitmer just came out. There's going to be a separate commission for LGBTQ. Why? It falls under the civil. They just passed it under the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act. Why is not separate one for African Americans? Why is there a separate one for Jews? It's the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act should cover everybody for any protected class. It's enough already. That's how I feel.
Well, the statute's broad. I don't know. I agree with you, Jeff. I don't know if there has to be a separate committee for that. I would agree.
So Jeff, here's a question for you, Jeff. The Michigan House just okayed the ban on child marriage. 5 Republican House members voted against the bill. How's that going to look in 2024, or is this just a non-issue?
An issue. If I were to walk up anybody in the street, I won't even.
Uh-oh.
Well, did I mention Jesus again? Because okay. I was worried that maybe I invoked something I shouldn't have done.
What?
You got cut off.
Why people want to get married earlier? It's like when they ruled gay marriage legal, I said they can be miserable too now. God bless them.
Better for family more.
Yeah.
Now, at least we know that when Jared, with that law being passed, Jared from Subway, when he gets released in 2029, will not be moving to Michigan.
Well, maybe he and Trump can both start doing McDonald's ads, because God knows that's the only food that Trump will eat.
I was actually on his plane, his personal plane, when he was running from Grand Rapids, Detroit. That was a quick flight. But he had a card, I swear, I got a picture. It's a classic with quarter pounders and French fries on it. And yes, I ate it. I loved it.
Wow.
By the way, I don't know if you've seen this picture going around on the internet, but somebody put yellow tape around his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and a bunch of boxes of documents next to it. It's just a great picture. Well, everybody's favorite GOP Congresswoman darling, Lauren Boebert, apparently got a little bit of rebuke from some of her fellow caucus members, who said, you are just going a little bit too far over your skis in trying to file articles of impeachment against President Biden, trying to bring it up onto the House floor. Apparently, it looks like it is being sent to committee anyways. But here's my question.
We got a video.
I thought there's a video.
2 of the most controversial Republicans in Congress had a profane exchange on the House floor today. The feud was between Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert. It was caught on camera. You can see them chatting there, and it led to a lot of questions. There was reporting that the word, and pardon my language here, or the phrase, little bitch, was thrown around. When asked about it by reporters earlier today, Greene said this.
Haley May's story about you calling her an expletive accurate?
I will not confirm or deny.
And Lauren Boebert said this.
Yeah, I'm not in middle school.
So what happened? Well, Greene's spokesperson has now confirmed tonight that the Georgia Republican did in fact use that language with her colleague, while accusing Boebert of, get this, copying her articles of impeachment against President Biden.
Wow. I heard the follow up on this is that Mitch McConnell said the same thing to Lindsey Graham on the Senate side. But anyway,
Saeed and I were talking before and saying we're not sure she even graduated from middle school.
So you got that going. Yes. So I mean, I was under the impression that only high crimes and misdemeanors were subject to impeachment, not for policy that has not only not been declared illegal, but in fact the U.S. Supreme Court rejected Texas and Louisiana's challenges to the Biden administration's deportation policies and practices, 8-1. Anyone want to guess who this dissenting vote was?
Clarence Thomas.
No, it was Sam Alito.
Oh, Alito! Wow,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's always when it's 7-2. It's always Alito and Clarence Thomas. But
but I mean, this whole idea then about the frivolous use of impeachment articles. It seems as though the center held, and even the House leadership pushed back on her.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, for
I'm gonna
Boebert,
say this.
performance
I
art,
think
you know.
I think people are sick of Congress not getting shit done on both sides. And because when Trump was in office, the first 2 years he had control as Biden did, although Biden did get his infrastructure bill done, which I applaud. And the bottom line is, I think people, I talk to people, they're just wearing people out. People are sick of all the BS, and it's an embarrassment. It's a total embarrassment to the rest of the world. We're the world leaders and the best. No, I just gave a U of M fight song. I think I blew it, but it's got to stop. I did a interview with your friend in the Wall Street Journal. You have one side hoping Trump goes to jail, and you have the other side hoping that the president gets diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So tell me how that helps all of us. It just doesn't, and it's enough, and it's chaos. But it gets us on the phone talking about all this stuff, and it's pathetic. It's truly pathetic, and I actually care like everybody else in this phone call cares. We have kids. Hopefully, have grandchildren one day. What a world to enter into! My God, it's terrible on both
So that's
sides.
something.
Yeah.
That's something that over here in the UK. I mean, former Prime Minister Boris Johnson just got a report that was published against him with the whole Partygate thing. But with inflation at 8.7%, with interest rates going up, I mean, you can tell the kind of fatigue, especially up here in the post-industrial north of England, that people are like, just move on. Look at what you've been doing to us. Well, speaking of people who have money and who use it in interesting ways, there was the tragic situation regarding the Titan, a submersible that was going down to explore and to see the wreckage of the Titanic at something along the lines of 4,000 meters or 12,500 feet for us Americans. And as it turns out, after 4 days of searching, it looks like pretty soon after it started to submerge, it had a catastrophic incident. It actually had an implosion, and 5 individuals, including the CEO or co-CEO of the company, Stockton Rush. By the way, interesting trivia fact here. Stockton Rush's wife was related to Isidore Straus, who was the founder of the Macy's department store, who, along with his wife, perished on the Titanic. Anyways,
Wow.
want to throw that out there. But also a father and his 19-year-old son, an expert on the Titanic, Paul-Henri Nargeolet, and a British billionaire, Hamish Harding. Shahzada Daoud and son Suleiman were also lost. There was an awful lot of coverage about this situation. It kind of reminds me of like when baby Jessica fell down the well and everybody was just singularly focused. Too much on it? Too little? What do we make of this whole thing?
I can tell you what I said in the gym. I said to my friends in the gym, and they were showing that now that they decided the thing exploded, I said, so 4 guys are driving down Linwood and their car blows up. How long would that be on TV?
Well, they were talking, I think it was Obama who was mentioning last night on a CNN interview. He said, where he's in Greece. He said that, hundreds of refugees drown, and, it's a 2-minute clip or whatever, and not that. But, it's interesting. I mean, for cable, it's a dream come true. I once, when I was at the Washington Post, I was supposed to be on Fox News to talk about a prosecutor who had died, and there was a whole scandal behind it. But they picked me up. I'm sitting there, and while they're putting makeup on me, the show is talking about a plane that's supposed to land in Boston at Logan Airport, and the wheels aren't coming down, so they're circling around, and the whole time they're going on and on. They put me in the studio. I got the earpiece on, and the plane finally lands, and everything's fine. And all these aviation people are saying, well, it's not that unusual. Sometimes that does happen. And so they keep saying, Alan, are you okay? We're going to delay it for 20 minutes. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then, Alan, we're going to delay it another 15 minutes. I finally say, why are you guys making such a big deal? The plane landed. The people you've interviewed said it's not a big deal. What are you guys doing? They ended up canceling me. I walk out into the newsroom and they say, hey, can you come back tomorrow? I said, no. So
that's a waste of some good makeup there, Alan.
yes, I looked good when I went home.
I thought the story was, captivating. Quite frankly, the Titanic is still like a captivating story, and it's going to be, generationally, just because of the movie and just the ironies of it all. You're going down to look at a graveyard where you end up becoming part of the graveyard. You're the opulence, and this is how rich people die. Apparently, in some instances, they're going out. It's just the hubris to an extent, also of the expedition with this uncertified experimental craft, the submersible. It's sad in every fucking way, and the ironies are rich.
$250,000 per seat.
Yeah,
and you're gonna get a seat. You're on the floor, from what I gather. It's fucking crazy. Now you get a sandwich, and you got
Yeah, does that come with the meal?
I think it does. You can get a kosher meal if you ask.
Wow, and extra peanuts.
Actually, they discourage the meal, because what they said is there is a toilet on board, but it's behind a curtain, and the pilot of the plane would turn the music up in order to drown out whatever sounds you were making. And they actually would tell you, kind of like if you're going in for a colonoscopy, to start like slowing down your eating, because it was actually supposed to be a 2-hour descent, a 2-hour ascent, and however long they were going to be there, so maybe 6 hours. So basically popping or free base an Imodium or two.
What I thought was interesting.
Farting out loud. I don't care.
Yeah. What I thought was interesting is on Facebook and stuff, you saw some real hostility toward wealthy people. There was somebody who wrote, 5 billionaires down, 526 more to go. There was a lot. I mean, it's like the people going up in space and all these, the rocket guys and stuff like that, and spending all that money. It brings out some of the class warfare.
Well, because you could afford to take a risk that's so fucking unnecessary.
Yeah.
Well, I think then, Alan, we are at that time of the show.
All right, I'm going to play a commercial first, and then we'll...
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. There are payment plans available to help save your property. Visit our website at treasurer.waynecounty.com or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com for further information. We're here to help.
And now...
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
We've got plenty of willing candidates. Let's go, Steve.
Well, I had a bunch of candidates. There's no doubt about that. We've talked about some, but I think at the end of the day, Sam Alito wins it going away, because he has the unique ability. Clarence Thomas pulls all the crap that he pulls, and then he basically just, so what? Or he doesn't say anything. Alito's like a whining little baby. He finds out this article is going to be published in ProPublica. So what does he do? He runs to the Wall Street Journal and he responds, and they print this on, I think, the editorial page, if I'm not mistaken, a response to something that's not yet written. And when I read the response, number one, the seat would have been vacant. It didn't. Number two, it would have cost the public a lot more, because I'd have to bring Secret Service agents with me on my fishing trip. Number three, it wasn't really that much of a luxury thing anyway. And number four, $1,000 for a bottle of wine. Who are we kidding? I just think that the guy, I wasn't surprised it was 8-1 on the case we talked about this morning, and that he was the one. I think compared to him, Clarence Thomas is Louis Brandeis, honest to God. So he's my Schmuck of the Week, not just for what he did, but his response and the thinness of his skin is kind of amazing for a person who's in the public eye.
I think his response in the Wall Street Journal shows just how out of touch. And for somebody who's supposed to be so bright, it was really a dumb response. It was really, if he had a PR person or something advise him, he'd be like, no, this is not the proper response to this. So, right.
So my question then for you is this: Elena Kagan, Sonia Sotomayor, Ketanji Taylor Jackson, who's going to be the first to call Alito little bitch? Just asking for a friend. Jeff.
Go ahead.
Jeff. Well, it's really easy for me to say it's Trump, but in honor of my love for Fishman and affection, I'm going to go Juwan Howard for having 2 top 10, 15 NBA draft picks and couldn't make the NCAA tournament. What do you think about that, Fish?
I'll tell you exactly what I emailed one of our former managers this morning, who, for the life of me, I know the NBA's changed a lot, but how that kid is the number 7 or 9 draft pick, he guarded absolutely nobody for an entire season. He shot it every time he got it. I didn't really see him beat people off the dribble, but I guess that the NBA, they believe if you're a great shooter, which he is, and he gets rid of it really quick, they think that they can make the guy into a ball player. Maybe they will, but the notion of and Bufkin's a good player, but first round draft pick, I don't know, man. I'm telling you. With respect to what's going on in the basketball program, I'm going to stand kind of mute on that. It's a strange time when all of a sudden our football program is rock solid when a few years ago it wasn't, and our basketball program's kind of sliding into the toilet a little bit when a few years ago it was rock solid. I guess that's the nature of college athletics these days.
Well,
coaching your son is hard. I think that was a big problem.
Yeah, I don't know. My old man coached me when I was young. It wasn't hard for him. He screamed at me all the time, just like worse than he screamed at other people.
But you were looking at $1 million contract. His son is, and he. I understand that that was a big problem in the locker room and elsewhere. That's why people fled, man. I mean, people left.
Yep, I believe that.
Okay, I got a Schmuck.
All right, Joe,
it's going to follow Stevens. It's going to be Amy Coney Barrett. It was just reported this morning that she has a real estate deal that is under scrutiny. After she got appointed to the bench, she made what apparently may be a sweetheart deal with a former or present Notre Dame law professor, and it just goes to the inherent systemic corruption that we're seeing in the Supreme Court that is just bothersome as a lawyer, as a citizen. Once you start questioning the fairness and the equities of the Supreme Court and really what their motives are and what their intentionality is, we got big problems, and it's just. Again, it's my fear of democracy. Just I think we all have that same concern. It's somewhat falling apart in front of our eyes. We're all, at least I'm 64. I don't know. What I've seen us progress, I thought we'd evolve, and seeing these Supreme Court justices who, I revered, growing up, that they could do no wrong. You're really, my God, it's as corrupt as any other political system, and that's all it is.
If it's about money and they feel as though their salary, and which of course is guaranteed on a lifetime appointment, is not enough, should we allow them to do ads in Japan?
No, we should. Okay. The reality, this is what drives me nuts, is public service is public service, and what we're seeing is public service as a means to wealth and to fame, and that's not what the purpose is, and I think that's how it's being utilized now. And
I would say. Fishman, what percentage of your work is federal versus state?
Right now?
Yeah.
100%. I don't go to state court anymore.
I'll tell you what, I would prefer that whoever the governor wins, people don't elect these judge positions, because if you have the Irish name or the common name, or people becoming it's so backed up, guys settle cases because they can't take the risk of the judge. I just want a group of people to nominate, like it would be and get people in with some intelligence that makes, I'll live with it. But the way it is now, it's nice to think people vote the right person in, but they.
So, you know who you're getting. You don't know who you're
getting. Let me say this real quick. The federal court, obviously, everyone is appointed. There's no doubt that we have a higher level of judge in the federal court, but you don't want to tarnish everybody with the same brush. There's plenty of state court judges who are excellent, but I agree with you. I think that
they would get it.
At the end of the day, or a better way to go, particularly the way we do it in federal court, where there's a whole group of lawyers that vet people. In the state, unfortunately, both Republican and Democratic governors, they have a lot of people. They're rewarding them for their campaign work. There's no real vetting, so I'll say no more than that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, Allan.
I'm going to go to the obvious, Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, over the little pettiness, and Marjorie Taylor Greene calling her a little bitch and arguing, and Marjorie Taylor Greene angry that Lauren Boebert trumped her, so to speak, and introduced the impeachment measure, whatever, against Joe Biden, who Joe Biden would have said, "Come on, man." But anyways. I think Joel was having problems with his power this morning, so he may have, or he may have invoked Jesus again and disappeared
and gotten smited.
A Republican fundraiser of those two getting in a cage fight. It could probably raise a lot of money.
Oh my God!
Well. Apropos to that, Jeff, my schmucks were going to be Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg for actually broaching that, but I've decided that there's actually this guy has got to be a Mimza. I'm just gonna. I need a fatwa from you on that. But it's Texas GOP Congressman Dan Crenshaw, a former Navy SEAL, who actually wasted no time in blaming President Biden for the deaths of the 5 people on the submersible, saying the government didn't act quickly enough to go ahead and save it. Now, I believe that the incident occurred in maritime waters that were either high seas or maybe in the off Canada. But the very idea to say that there was something that could be done any quicker with the Coast Guard already acting is not only ridiculous, it's reckless given the fact that Crenshaw himself is a former Navy SEAL. But to go ahead and politicize it in such an absolutely naked way, Dan Crenshaw, you're my schmuck of the week. Well, listen, thank you all for being on, and thank you, Joel, for making it back in the closing overs of the shows. Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Steve. And Allan with the last word.
Drive home safely.
Have a great
Thanks, everybody.